Welcome to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Janeen Herskovitz, and it's my goal to help you create a more peaceful home while living with autistic and neurodivergent loved ones. Each episode, we focus on a different room in the house and help you create a peace plan for your home. So let's get started. Hey friends, welcome to the Autism Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Janeen Herskovitz, and today we have a really special episode lined up for you. Have you ever planned something that didn't quite turn out the way you expected? If you're a parent of an autistic kiddo, of course you have. And so you know the fallout that can happen on a daily basis, even over things like plans that unexpectedly change or when their favorite food is not available at the restaurant that they love. But what happens when things are not only unexpected, but dangerous, maybe even life-threatening? So join us as we dive into an unexpected adventure that unfolded during our recent family trip to the mountains. In this episode, I'm going to be chatting with my husband, Joe, and together we're going to recount the journey through the chaos of Hurricane Helene. From our last-minute decision to evacuate from Asheville, North Carolina, to the challenges that we faced after the storm hit, we will share experiences navigating the unknown with our neurodivergent family members. And we'll discuss the importance of preparation, the unexpected twists that can turn a vacation into a survival story, and how we manage to keep our spirits up amid the uncertainty. So whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or just someone looking for a relatable story, you won't want to miss this episode. And be sure to listen to the end where I'll be sharing some more takeaways. And I'll also be sharing something Ben said after we completed the interview and we were talking about it. So let's get started. I am very happy to welcome my special guest, Joe Herskovitz. Hi, Joe.
Hi, honey. How are you?
How are you? I'm
good.
good.
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing
Since
well.
this morning.
Good.
Okay.
So I wanted to start out by having you introduce yourself. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience who you are, and we'll take it from there.
I'm Joe. I'm Janeen's husband of 30 years, and very happy husband and very happy father of two. And I was a teacher for 20 years, but since retired in the last 5 years to take care of our son at home. And that's what I got so far.
Excellent. What did you teach?
I taught social studies, mostly all social study, government, world cultures, American history, at secondary level and middle school.
Wonderful. Very good. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging.
It's a thankless job that doesn't pay so much.
I know.
I'm glad that you're here with us today. So we're gonna talk to you a little bit today about your experience on a family vacation to Asheville in late September of
that was me, right?
2020.
Yeah.
That was you. Yes.
I remember now.
That was you. Yeah. So we had taken a trip to Asheville with our family, with my daughter Becca and my son Ben. They're both in their 20s. Our audience will know that both my kids are neurodivergent. Ben has difficulty expressing himself through verbal language, and he does love to travel. So we decided to go to the mountains of Asheville right at the same time that a hurricane, Helene, was headed for Florida. So thinking that we were getting out of the way of the harm, we went up there, and what happened next was unexpected, to say the least. Joe, I want to kind of start with you and your initial thoughts about the experience. As far as we arrived there, it was kind of a rainy day the night before the storm hit. We got settled in and figured maybe we would have to, deal with loss of power and things like that. Can you describe your initial feelings when you woke up to find that there wasn't any power in the cabin? Like, what was going through your mind initially?
Well, that was I knew in the back of my mind that was a very, very real possibility. There was rain, there was storms, and it had rained basically it rained and the rain had followed us from North Florida all the way up to Asheville, and it was strange because everything seemed to be working out okay. We got to a hotel halfway. We found it. We got in. We got settled. We woke up in the morning. We're making good time. It rained still, but we got to our cabin. They were okay with us to check in early, and my son was in a hot tub immediately, which is exactly what we had to do. We Airbnb'd it, filtered out hot tubs, and anything in Asheville with a hot tub, we checked out. And he was in that hot tub immediately. There was power. We thought, and it was a beautiful place. It was a really nice place. It fit all of our criteria.
Yeah. We were in the Waynesville section, right on the side of a mountain. So just to kind of give our listeners kind of a picture of where we were and what we were doing. And we just figured that the next morning we'd go out and get groceries, although we did have some food in the house, but not really enough.
We actually had our little plan where we'll order out the first night.
Right.
I'll grab like a couple of snacks, but and then in the morning, Becca and I go to the grocery store. We'll get our groceries, and usually it's enough for a couple of dinners, and we eat out once or twice, but whatever. We're very homebody kind of people. We really like to just enjoy the house, and that works out well. And the absolute beauty, the mountains. It was the first time for our family to be there, so it was a really thrilling experience. It was our kids' birthdays. Both of our kids were born in October, so we have October babies, 8 and 10, and so it was a late September. We figured we'll celebrate birthdays and yeah.
So let me circle back around to my question for you. If you go back to that time, what was your initial thought when you got up the next morning?
Well, then I woke up and there was no power. I kind of wasn't surprised about that because I knew a storm was coming. The storm was coming, and as we were following it into the early morning hours, they were still saying this keeps coming through, and it's still got a lot of power, and it's in Georgia, and it's in South Carolina, and it's it almost felt like, wow, this thing is fine. But once we woke up in the morning, there was no power. I heard the sounds of a lot of chainsaws, and after I got dressed and I was really fully prepared to just maybe power would be back in a couple of hours. I'm going to get some food, tap off the gas, and then we're good to go.
So let me interrupt you. At what point did you figure out that leaving the cabin was going to be our best option?
I said, well, it was initial, just going out to the car. The car was on an incline, which went up about, it rose up. I mean, our house is kind of built into the side of the mountain. So the driveway went straight up. And when I looked at the car, which was kind of very high up now, and then looked at the rock driveway at the bottom, and the road that I had to get onto to get out, there was a giant tree that had fallen across, and there were families out there with chainsaws and trying to get this tree out, because any family or any house that was above the road and that tree, they weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. So I just want kind of our audience to keep in mind that at this point we not only have no power, there's no cell service at all. There's no way to get in touch with the outside world at this point.
Starting up the car, that's when I realized we don't have cell phone. Okay, we don't have cell, but so I don't have maps. So I kind of basically knew right down maybe about 2 miles away was a little gas station and a little gas and sip, all kinds of stuff like that. And there was a restaurant in there too. So I'm like, well, I gotta tap the car off, which was maybe at a quarter tank. But anyway, and I went down to this little place. I kind of maneuvered my way where I could get the car out of our driveway, and luckily we could I started the descent down the hill. to the main road. You get on the main road, and it's really maybe about 200 yards from the main road. Off to the side was a little gas station and foods. And attached was a restaurant. That was actually where we had gotten our food the night before, and it was wonderful. Good, just great.
Yeah. And so what happened when you got there?
I got there, everything was dead. People were kind of wandering around. There were cars that kind of off to the side, some parked on the side of the road, and everybody was just kind of milling about in their pajamas trying to find out where the best place to get gas would be, or anything, any supplies, because at this point everything was just dead. I asked the lady where a gas station was. And she's like, well, you could possibly go down maybe about a mile. There's another gas station, and they have a generator. And I heard that they were, they were up and running, but they weren't.
Yeah. So at that point, it was, you had to go with like word of mouth to figure out where to go next and get the gas. And so you got the gas.
I did, yeah, but I'm driving around, and if I would have gotten lost on a quarter tank of gas, I may not. Yeah, whatever. I'm starting to. All these things are starting to go into my head. Like, wait a second. If I don't know where gas is, and I only have a quarter tank, and I don't know how many miles I have to go, and these are long, long roads where you could be going the wrong way for many miles before you realize you've gone the wrong way. And there's nothing. And so anyway, I luckily, I kind of was following a mass of where everybody seemed to be going to look for gas, which was off of one of the main highways. I went down to the main highway, and the road was out. So I couldn't go that way. There was a service road that I had to find that I could, was following other people. That service road took us to another way to get to this main road, but the way we had gotten in had been completely washed out. There was just one police officer down there just saying you can't go, and then maybe half a mile up, you could see that the road started up again, and it was completely underwater. And that was at that point, I'm like, I'm going to go.
What's coming up for you at that point?
I'm thinking I have to go home and tell Janeen, we have to get out of here. This is now. So I had talked to a couple people. I talked to a police officer who he just, at that point, he was just stationed there to make sure people just didn't drive into the water. So, and nobody knew really what was going on and where the major problems were. And it wasn't, and because no news was coming in, nobody knew what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny how enslaved we are to our phones and what because once these little comforts leave, we really kind of are up against the wall, especially when you're not from the area and you really don't know where to go to get just the basics to get the hell out. So So I'd gone the opposite. Once I got gas and I knew where I was, and I just wanted to kind of survey it, see, just last hope that maybe this was just an isolated area that was really messed up. And I drove the opposite direction, and they're long and winding roads, and absolutely beautiful. The ironic thing is, the beauty that we went up there for was totally there. It was absolutely gorgeous, but it was also now completely devastated. I drove about 3 miles south of where we were to see if that opened up, and I saw that there was this one road that I would have to take to get to the main road to get out of that area. And there was this enormous tree and its huge root system that was holding back this gushing water that was just, these streams that at one time were just these little creeks, little streams and everything like that. They're now just absolutely engorged with water. Just they're overflowing.
Right.
And that all the rain, and now everything that was up on the mountains was just coming down. So all those streams of water now fully, they're like rivers, and they are just coming down. At like 70 miles an hour. The descent from 6,000 to 1,000, which is, going down that mountain, and how the water was coming down was ridiculous, and so fast that is a part of the devastation. Anyway, so at this point, I finally got home. I got to you, and you were like immediate when I told you. You must have saw it in my face that I'm as disappointed as can be, but now it's kind of, you have to say, we have to get out of here, and everybody's gonna have to nut up. Luckily, you didn't unpack.
Right. So just for my autism families out there who are just kind of, their jaws are probably like, oh my gosh, how would I do that? Like when
this
you
is the
came
worst
back
news you can possibly think. I have to tell
horrible, right?
Just when we got in there, we're leaving.
Yeah. Right. Because our kids are they look forward to these things. And I know that, Ben was really excited and he'd already experienced the hot tub. So it's like, now we have to rip him away from this place
that already served his purpose.
We don't know where we're going.
Yeah. And he's expecting 3 more nights.
Right. So we had to, I was determined to make that happen, come hell or high water, pun intended. So Joe, tell me, kind of switch a little bit, if you could, to kind of your emotional brain, and tell me, as a dad, you're in this moment, and what is going through your mind?
Get gas. My actually, we had gas, but I mean, I knew that we were going to have to regularly tap off the tank, find gas, and keep moving. And I just wanted us to get to something that would be comparative to what he had and what my son and daughter had, so that they could at least feel like this is a trip, that this is a vacation, that this is fun, that because it's just, you sometimes feel like, you're walking around with a cloud over you, not anybody else, just you. And when these things happen, where all of a sudden, just, you're like, wait a second, we're on the Titanic. How did this happen?
Yeah.
Why can't we just have a normal vacation? Why can't we just enjoy ourselves? Why? And whatever. It was. And this was really out of our hands. I mean, we really kind of. You had all the plans. Everything was. We believe me. We don't do anything willy-nilly. Once we decide we're going to do it, I mean, it's like having to plan a military campaign. You just have to prepare for the unexpected. And we really didn't think, you really don't think the unexpected is going to happen. And then it did. Then it absolutely did.
So worst. Let me stop you for a minute. So at this point, we're unaware of, here we're talking about vacation, and I don't want to make light of what's happening there, and I don't want people to think that's what we're doing, because we had no conception of so we had no conception of loss of life, of
we really didn't know
what was happening, of roads that were so when you came in and said, let's go, I don't think I've ever seen your face that scared. There's been a handful of times. And you looked pale as a ghost, and I was just glad that you got back to the house without GPS.
I don't know who was worse off, people that didn't have a house, or people who lost their house but did live there. We had a house to go to. It didn't have power, but it was absolutely fine.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, the worst that really could happen is we're just going to be in this house for 4 days with no power. And
right.
And not much to do. I mean,
so once you see the mudslides and the water rising, and literally houses floating by, right, where they weren't before. So we pack up the car. I think here is where I think presuming our children's competence really comes in, because if we treat our children as if they understand, they will often rise to the occasion, because they do understand. It's just sometimes difficult for them to process what's going on. So I just said, listen, Ben, we have to get in the car. There's been a really bad storm. We're going to have to find another place to stay so that we can be safe. It's not safe for us to be here. everything was dark. So it was kind of easier to convince him because he does like car rides. So we're lucky that way.
Oh, yeah.
So we just shoved everything in the car, got in there, and just started driving. And I know that for me, once we started driving around that mountain, I had no idea it was going to take us 8 or 9 hours of kind of just
Yeah.
driving around and around and around and trying to find a way to get
Right.
off that mountain and back down
Right.
into Georgia.
Right. I mean,
Um,
yeah.
I want to kind of bring you bring you back to that moment, Joe. I feel like that we had some family bonding that was going on there. And I know that sounds really cliche, but what did you notice about, I mean, because here you are, you're the driver, right? So you're in the front seat, Becca's in the passenger seat being co-pilot. I'm in the back with Ben to make sure he's okay and he's got his food and, everything else.
We're all
And
together.
we're all together,
We're all
right? So
in that. Yeah.
that's what I'm focusing on. And what at that point, while you're driving, what are the concerns coming in for you?
I just, I never felt, I never felt threatened in my country, like in my, I always thought you just get on a road and we can drive out of the problem. There's got to be but when things break down, the basic things, and you're in a place, I've never been in the military. I've never been in destabilized places. I've never been through real pain, the things that some families live through that would make this trip look like an actual vacation.
Right.
So, everything is relative, but for us, this is, our world is very isolating. It's very, you almost are always looking out to see, what is going on in the world. We miss things because it can be our situations can get, be so, we don't have friends that have any kind of experiences that are similar to ours. We don't have people that you could call up and say, "Oh boy, yeah, your kid ran naked down the street." Me too.
Okay, so let me
I'm
just bring
sorry.
you
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
That's okay.
What I'm
Tell
saying
me.
is, this is what I'm
Mhm.
thinking, and I'm thinking, did we do something wrong on an existential?
Mm,
Are we cursed, or are we? Um, everybody seems to be able to do things like, with such with, and I know that's not true, and everything is relative to a person's situation and their experiences, but it just felt like we were really, um, cursed, and so
yeah.
anyway. But I gotta, when that happens, I get angry, and so I want to fight back. So I'm like, you're not gonna take me off this stupid mountain without a fight. So I'm gonna get my family the hell out of here, and that
Yep.
became like the only thing I'm like, but even
So what were
yeah.
the challenges? What were the
Oh,
challenges for you at this point?
the challenges were like, since I'm driving, everything about us, I felt we had to always be moving. If we even today, if we go out to the store or something like that, if we stop at a red light, Ben will say, want the light to turn green, want the light to turn green, or and it's just like, I, you kind of answer, but you don't. You know that these are just the stems that we live with. But here we are, we were in traffic that isn't even moving. People are literally on the sides of the road, standing out, trying to get cell service, trying to figure out where to go. And roads are parking lots, and these are major highways. No food, no gas,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
everybody having a problem at the same exact time. And things
So
are breaking down, and you
yeah,
and I can see that, because we can see people are now just inventing roads and inventing
yeah,
which direction roads can go, so they can get off of roads, so they can get whatever. Everybody's just trying to figure out what to do next, and there's really
yes,
no
yes.
direction.
So was there a moment where you had like kind of some hope, like, okay, we're doing the right thing? What was hopeful for you?
Well, it seemed like every half hour I had hope, like, oh, this road's going to get us out of here. This is the road that, even though it looked exactly like every other road, it would just be a winding road. Um, as I was hopeful until it started to get dark. And once it got dark and we really lost the ability to see where we're going and see signs that we may have to find or road signs or whatever, it started to really sink in that, you know what? I mean, this is how people, in the craziness of a situation, they drive off the side of a mountain because they did, or whatever. And in
Yeah.
our car, the fear that it could get nuclear, because my son could have a meltdown, it was
Yes.
just always ever present, in
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that I think I was realizing is that he's dealing with this. He's dealing with
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
what is actually going to happen here is that we're going to do this. We're going to get out of this, and it's going to be good, and it's going to be.
Yeah.
But this is a pill that really sucks, and I hate this. And our kids aren't gonna feel like, oh, I see wasn't that exercise and family dynamics fun, and you learn so much about what you can take and what you can't. They don't give a shit about that. And I don't
Well,
either. I'm sick of it. I
yeah.
just want to have. I just want to
Right.
sit
Enough with
there
the lessons.
and
Enough with the life
I
lessons.
just want to sit there and look at my kid smiling in a hot tub and know, all right, I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about anything for a little while. He's happy. I want to. Becca is doing her thing and or whatever. Um,
Yeah. So I do want to ask about some of the community resources that we were actually able to, besides just running into people and asking them questions, and what did you find was the most helpful as far as people in the community that helped us?
well, everybody I talk to, and I just you're talking to millions of people, just not millions. You're talking to a lot of anybody that just, hey, you're here, you live here. What do I do? Uh,
Yeah.
is there gas up that road? Uh, I mean, and here's the thing: they didn't know, and but they did the best they could trying to inform people that aren't from the area. I mean, it's a touristy area. They know they deal with tourists every, but this was something that they never dealt with. This hadn't happened since 1916, where they had
Yeah.
a storm that was of this magnitude that got that high up in the mountains, and it was that devastating. So
Yeah.
so they're sitting there trying to many of them knowing people that don't have houses anymore,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that happened overnight, just so a lot of people were in the same boat as us, much worse. They didn't even have a boat, they're just in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
everything
I know.
seemed relative. So but the people were very friendly, and we came. And once it started getting dark and we were trying to get around uh, a lot of circuitous routes with trees that had fallen down in front of the road, so we had to kind of back up or go that way. We finally came across the fire department. You said, listen, fire departments, they have to have self-service. I don't know where I heard this, but so I'm like, all right. So
Yeah.
there was a
You know
fire
what? I think
department.
I think it was when I was a kid, Mr. Rogers one time took everybody to like the fire
Shout out
station
to
on his
Mr.
show.
Rogers.
Right? And for one of those kid shows, I just remember being a kid and being taught, if you can find a fireman or a policeman, that's who you go to when you need help and don't know what to do.
Right.
So,
Oh, we
when
got
we
in
were
there.
driving, we were in
Cashiers, that's it.
Yeah, in that
Which
area,
is
which
a
is super
cute little town.
touristy,
Yeah, I mean, they had
really cute, kind of bougie, but at this point, everybody's just kind of wandering around in, like you said, in their pajamas, wondering what to do.
right,
And we did manage to find that fire station
and they
there. and they told us what road to look for.
Right. And
They
he
would take us out.
right. He said, you're going to go about 15 miles. And oh gosh, now I can't remember the name. I'll have to go to the
It's okay. It's not important.
but you have to make a left on something on this road. If you make a right, then you go back around the mountain. And I'm like, huh, okay. So and that's 15 miles. And who knows, after a while, it's just like, whatever. And we're driving and I couldn't, and I'm really starting to think maybe we should just turn around and just try to get back to the cabin, at least in the cabin, but at this point, I think the roads to get back to the cabin were now out completely. If they,
Yes.
nobody knew whether to go north or south. And we had realized the only way to get us home, or at least in the direction of home, was to go southeast. And try to go towards South Carolina and go around towards Georgia, was it Clemson or something like that?
It was toward there, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, as we're driving, I just, all this is going through my head. I see the road, and we make a left, and at that point, things started to open up. All of the we started to get sporadic internet service. It was popping on,
Right.
and we could get a little map of just a glimpse of where the hell we were. So we could start. And we literally at this point had paper maps. We went into one of the gas stations, and the guy had to look a while, but he found paper maps.
Did he really?
Yeah. They were just like there, but it was they looked kind of brown.
Nobody asks for these anymore.
Yeah, no. I think they just buy them for like to use in some what is that? When you cut things out and collage things.
Decoupage?
Decoupage, right, of their trip to Asheville. Here's
Right,
maps.
it's like
Look what people
memorabilia.
used to use.
Right. Well, and Joe, I remember you getting in the car and
yeah.
like handing the map to Becca and going, okay, you read the map. And she looked at you and she said,
No.
I don't know how to read a map. And so
it's dark.
I don't think a lot of 25-year-olds know how to read a map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything was so
I read
small.
the
I'm like,
map.
you can't blow it up or anything. I'm like,
no, you can't. You can't do that thing with in case people are listening and not watching, that thing with your fingers where you make the screen bigger.
And the irony is I'm a geography teacher. I taught geography, so I looked at maps all the time, and I literally I was at that point so scared and frustrated that I had to hand it back. I'd say, okay, you gotta make sense of this, and you're folding them all up, and you're like, all right, we find like Route 23. We got to stay on this road.
Right. So I think we spent a couple of hours with me on the map and you driving, and then Becca telling you where trees were. And after a while, we got Ben involved with helping, quote unquote, by saying, I would say, hey, Ben, let's look for down trees for Dad, and let's, so he I think he thought it was like a treasure hunt or bear hunt or
I think he likes. I think he likes. Yeah, I think he likes watching us lose our shit. I do.
Well, here's the thing too, and I have to tell you, we didn't lose our shit. We didn't lose it completely.
No. Well, I think we all knew. In my mind, it was like explosions.
Yes, but I think one of the things that we have learned through the years, I mean, Ben is 27 now, is that our mood will set the tone. Yeah. And it's literally contagious, the mood. So we almost had to pretend.
This is a part of it.
Like, hey, it's fine. It's going to be okay. Look, I'm looking up hotels on the phone. We're going to find a good hotel. Meanwhile, not sure who's going to have availability because we're not the only ones trying to get out of there.
It's like one of these escape mountains.
It's like an escape room, but an escape mountain.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm wondering, in what ways do you think it brought our family closer together? What stands out to you?
When we got into, when you found the La Quinta Hotel, it was like a brand new one in Georgia, somewhere in Georgia. There was nothing, and then there was this big neon green, and it was brand new, and the people were really friendly. and we got a beautiful room, and everything. We got food, and we were and that
We collapsed.
right, and the fact that you could find something in such short notice that would be comparable or whatever comparable, that the vacation, we were still like, this vacation, we can't just go home. If we go home,
Right.
then we are in trouble.
Then there will be a meltdown.
Then there will
And
be,
plus, honestly, we didn't know what we were going home to. We were
right.
still trying to process what was going on
Yeah.
and what the fallout would be. So we figured we'll just go get another Airbnb in Georgia, which we did, and it was good enough.
Good enough.
It served the purpose. I think good enough is a lesson that we use in our daily lives, and it's something that I had to really learn.
Yeah, it's not like, it's a little lower your expectations, but but good enough is they, in the end, I'm sure that they'll look back on it as not the vacation that they wanted, but we did, in time, we have another vacation that was wonderful, and I mean, they realized that was just, that sometimes things go, I don't know really, because in a lot of ways they have to deal with stuff that that they don't have peers that they can relate to, that really deal with the same situations. They get very disappointed.
Right.
And I know, just, I'm speaking for Becca, because I know she has to get disappointed when these things kind of just don't go, and a lot, sometimes it's our fault. It's just, we're crazy, or not crazy, but I mean, our family
It's
is a
not a
little different.
typical
It's
situation.
not
Yeah.
typical. Things can happen,
Yeah.
whatever. But this time, this was out of our hands. Really, we really had everything in set up, and paid for, and and we had,
Yeah, just when you think it's okay.
and natural
And
disasters step in.
right. Yes. And I know that there are a lot of families right now experiencing natural disasters all over the country and in California.
Yeah.
And I mean, my
Absolutely.
heart just goes out to them. I mean, ours was only, maybe a day or two of absolute, like, I don't know how this is going to end up kind of feeling. I can't imagine when that happens to your own home.
And yeah,
It's just devastating.
absolutely.
But
And nobody can
there
prepare
were.
for that.
Mhm.
Nobody, you just,
Oh, no. No, you really can't prepare for that, and I think that's just where the kindness of strangers comes in, and
abs-
where, you pull together, and I think, as worried as we were about, the kids, as we call them, our kids are 25 and 27. Yes, they're neurodivergent. Yes, sometimes we need to take extra time to do the things that other families would do. But in the end, I think saying to them, hey, we're in this together. We're a team. We're a family.
right,
We're going to get out of this together. And everybody plays a part.
right,
Right.
absolutely.
So I just remember
We were
saying to Ben,
we were
handing,
actually having some very good laughs that we had never had
we actually, yeah,
before,
yeah.
and maybe it's that nervous laughter, but
And
when my
tears
son
and
laughs
yeah.
and giggles
Right.
at things that are in this world, and and you can say, okay, that's what he's like, that doesn't happen often, and
Yeah.
so when it does, it's very, it warms your heart, and so
Mhm.
so that the fact, so this experience now, in hindsight, you can see it for what it is, and you can say, wow, I feel good that we got through that. But um at the time, you really feel cursed,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it feels like, haven't we been through enough stuff, you know?
or it just
But
makes you think, well, I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't wanna-
right, right.
and that obviously isn't true, but um it can really, you can see how people can get depressed, or people can get into thinking patterns that um uh, they can't get out of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'm wondering, for you, were there any lessons that you took away or things that you took away from that experience?
Never give up. Keep trying.
Mm.
If you're the parent and you know that everything that however you're experiencing this experience, um, they're sponges. Our kids may not say, one can't really, and my son can't always say exactly what's going on, or my daughter just doesn't want to bring it up because she just doesn't want to bring it up because
Hmm.
it's just what and that's something that has always been painful, that feeling like if my daughter can't say, I have issues too, but because
Sure.
his are so big and usually you leave the both of you exhausted, my needs sometimes can get, and that's always been something that you and I both have always battled with, and it's been painful because we know that
Yeah.
I've always wanted to overcompensate because to make sure that we had special time together, because and that's one of the reasons that I was really looking forward to having time with Becca to go to art museums. And
Hmm.
as we
Right.
and we I had and that just didn't happen. And she never complains. She never says
No.
anything like, "Wow, I didn't get to do that."
Right. Right. Right.
And so,
She's realistic. She's living in this world with us.
mhm,
So it's, and for Ben, it's hard to tell what the impact was. Sometimes he takes a few days, sometimes a week later to really process, what had happened. But I just kept telling him everything that I thought he might be wondering.
right,
I just kept saying, no matter what happens, we're going to be safe.
right,
I remember Becca saying, if we don't find a hotel, what will we do?
mhm,
And I said, well, honey, we have our car. And if we have to sleep in the car in a safe parking lot, then that's what we'll do.
right.
But we'll be fine. And we will make sure that you guys are fine too. It's going to be okay.
Setting that
And
tone.
yeah. And honestly, that's, probably one of the hardest things about parenting is that when you are in a situation where you really don't know what's going to happen next,
That
you
was the weird
still
thing.
can. Yeah, that was weird, but you still can reassure the people around you that, like, okay, it's okay, we're going to figure this out together.
Right, right.
And
They need you to,
I just
even
yeah,
when they're
right.
adults.
100%. 100%. They do. I mean, we have this idea that you become an adult and suddenly you're supposed to know everything,
Will
and
not be
we just
affected by
don't.
these things.
Right, right. This was a biggie for us. It was a biggie for our family.
Absolutely.
Um, what do you think, like, after this experience, do you approach future family trips and future family vacations differently, and how?
Well, I don't want to say that I'm like, well, that can't happen again. So that now that the worst is because that's the kind of thinking where I always know that something is out there that wants to trump that. Um,
Sure.
but I realized that I realized how great a family can be um, when you're all vulnerable and you're all okay with what's happening, and not okay, but you're also you're gonna, like you said, like, we're gonna get through this. You may not, whatever, we're gonna get through this as a family. And we could have never had that. I could have never had the realizations of how proud I was of my family, and that we got through this and everybody was okay and nobody was like, losing their. I'm not sure how anybody deals with these catastrophes. Um, even thinking about, like, the fires in LA and the mudslides,
Mhm.
hurricanes. I mean, it seems like natural disasters, tsunamis. There's things that happen where lives are just absolutely thrown up in the air. And when you
Mhm.
fall and you come down, you get up, and you have to just realize that all the things that you have and all the things that we have are a beautiful family that is still kicking and trying to live and love and enjoy each other's company. Um,
Yeah.
And we did, and that couldn't have happened unless this happened. Yet if you were to say, okay, this is going to happen, guess what you're going to learn from this? I'd be like, yeah, I want to learn that. That's wonderful. But do I have to go through all
Sign me
that?
up.
That
Right.
sucks. I don't want to do that.
Yes, I think
And I don't think I
there's
am.
a reason we don't
I
know.
don't
Yeah,
need
I
to
think
know
there's a
that.
reason we don't know about that.
Yeah.
100%.
I think
Yeah.
that if we don't go through it, we'll never get the sweet stuff. That
Mm,
I guess.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of been the theme of our family's life, at
Completely.
least. And we either can fight against it, or we can lean in and go, okay, what does this have to teach me? Which I know sounds so cliche, but
It is.
it's true.
Everything.
It really is.
Right. You don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers.
Mm-mm.
Nobody has all the answers. But at least if you
Yep.
lean in, you'll learn.
Well, and I do want to say too, I don't want our listeners to think that like we did this all perfectly and got
No.
through it in that way. Like we had moments, you and I each had a moment
Yeah.
where like we had to like, almost like a cartoon, like slap each other in the face, not slap each other and go, okay, buddy, you got to pull it together.
But in the past, we would have probably blamed each other for things. Or whatever.
That's an interesting point.
I mean, we matured.
We would have.
If
Yes.
this happened 10
Yeah.
years ago, it would have been probably much worse. Because
I agree with
and
you.
and
Yeah.
you and I may have been, how terrible would it have been if we're fighting? And the kids,
Right. Like what's
and this
the
is
point?
a big case, right?
Yeah. Because nothing was anybody's fault, but I think when we feel vulnerable, let me just like go psychoanalyze for a minute. When we feel vulnerable in any situation and out of control, that is when we blame, criticize, shame. The research shows that that's how we offset that feeling within us. When we get really worked up about something, it's really easy to do that to the people around us. And I know that we've done that. Both of us have done it. Both of us do it from time to time,
Who
and then
else would
have to
put
catch
up with it?
ourselves.
Nobody else would put up with it.
Right. But none of that happened. And I think
Yeah.
it's because we really did spend a lot of time just self-regulating. Every once in a while, Becca would make a joke, or I would say, okay, let's all take a really deep breath. And even Ben would do it.
Oh,
Like
right,
he would
right,
even, it
right.
was just so cute. So you don't know sometimes what your child with autism is capable of
Unless you
until push comes
jump
to
out
shove and you
into the
have no
unknown.
choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Take the leap.
So, and I just want to encourage our listeners out there too, that if you guys have stories, I would love to hear them. You can definitely, reach out to me at autismblueprint.com and share any stories that you have about, how your family has experienced.
As well as great vacation spots of where everybody seems to be very understanding of,
right.
to make sure that whatever disasters
so
could
Joe,
happen don't.
Yeah, I mean, we went into a good went down a good rabbit hole there, but I do want to bring it back to: is there anything you do differently now planning trips with our kids, or is it pretty much the same?
You're breaking up. You just broke up.
Is there anything you do differently?
Is there anything I do differently because of this experience?
Yeah, as far as planning another trip in the future.
Much. I have a couple of weather apps now, so I can know exactly what's going on, where I'll be, every mile of the way.
I see you've given this some thought. Yeah.
What it made me feel is actually made me feel less afraid to do it things. Because now I'm like, well, we got through that. I mean, even though I don't like to roll the dice on the unknown, the idea is that if we can survive that, we can do anything, or at least we can, we're in it. We can make a good run at it. So never stop trying, and you never. I mean, again, that the biggest lessons in my life have been that going through hard times always have the most beautiful lessons. the most impactful ones. And that's the beauty. That's the, I don't know, the sweet and sour of it all. If you want meaningful, not that you have to always suffer, but you certainly have to be aware when you're suffering what's happening, and that you can survive it, and you will. People survive all things, as bad as it can get. And this, again, this was not in any way comparative to some of the horrible things that happen in the world. Everything's relative. This is our matzo ball. This is our craziness.
Right.
We don't know anybody else's.
And that's an important thing, I think, to leave our listeners with, because I hear a lot of times in my office, well, this bad thing happened to me, but it's not as bad as, this other person that I know. And while that can put things in perspective for us, we still have to remember whatever we're going through is our own experience. And that's just as valid. We should never compare suffering like that.
I think people are quick to just think that everything is, it's black and white. Well, they didn't get through college. They didn't do this. They didn't, they got in a car accident. They, I didn't. There are so many mitigating things that a person has to probably think about if you want to walk in somebody's shoes, if you want to understand what their walk is all about, or their life experiences are all about. If you don't know, then just listen instead of telling them, "Well, that didn't happen to me." Oh, good for you.
I think that's probably a good place for us to stop. Thanks for coming on today.
Was it better?
And very good, very good.
Last time,
thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
And
I love you.
I love you too. Will you come back another time?
Yes, I will.
Talk about something else?
I would absolutely love to.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Bye.
So as we wrap up this episode of the Autism Blueprint Podcast, I want to take a moment to reflect on our unexpected adventure during Hurricane Helene. So one of the first areas that I want to stress is routine and structure. Autistic children often thrive on routine, as many of you know, and when plans change unexpectedly, like during our trip, it can be really challenging. So you want to prepare them for potential changes and maintain some structure even in a new environment. And that can be really tricky. So having their favorite snacks, their favorite comfort items, an iPad that's fully charged at all times, even just your car can be a predictable, comforting space during a time of chaos. Using visual supports is another important aspect. So however your child communicates, particularly if they're a visual learner, using visual supports such as social stories, visual aids, iPads, even sometimes we'll just use a whiteboard to write things on so that he'll be able to take it in a little bit easier. These can all help them understand what's happening and what to expect next, which reduces anxiety in general. I want you to also be considering sensory needs. So sensory sensitivities, especially in stressful situations, can be exacerbated. So the noise of a storm or the chaos of an evacuation or a quick change of plans can often be really overwhelming. So bring along noise-canceling headphones or other comfort items to help manage that sensory overload. I'm also a big believer in having a medication PRN or as needed, something that will help calm them in times of crisis. Stay engaged with them and as calm as you can while presuming their competence. So I know that this is a tricky one, but in moments of crisis, it's essential to remain calm, especially when you're traveling with family members who have special needs. Keeping a level head can keep everybody feel more secure and less anxious because that kind of energy is contagious. Understand that your child may react differently to stress, so patience is key. You want to acknowledge their feelings and provide reassurance that they are safe and they are loved. Be prepared for meltdowns or anxiety to surface maybe days or weeks afterwards because it takes them some time to process. You can keep your child engaged during stressful times, like we did in the car with games, snacks, conversations to distract them from their anxiety. During our drive, we focused on looking for downed trees or interesting sights to keep Ben occupied. And when we presume their competence, this is a term you've heard me use a lot. We're speaking to and including our autistic children as if they can understand, because they usually can. And so it just may take a little bit longer than expected for them to fully process everything that's happening around them, especially when anxiety is high. Communication is crucial, right? So with no cell service and limited access to information, we had to rely on each other for updates and reassurance. So this open, calm, patient communication helped us navigate the challenges together. Community support is so important, right? So the kindness of strangers, like the fire station staff who helped us find our way, reminded us of the importance of community. So please don't hesitate to ask for help when you need it. And focusing on gratitude. I think that focusing on the gratitude is a little bit different than looking for a silver lining or being very positive, because that's not necessarily aligned with what's happening in the situation. But when we focus on gratitude, we can manage to find the things that we want to focus on, because what we focus on is going to get bigger. So despite the chaos, we managed to kind of bond as a family, and we found humor in our situation, as we do with a lot of things. And then talking about it afterwards, after we were safe and home and, able to kind of all discuss what it was like for us, it reminds everyone that we're okay now and that we're taking the time to recover together. So by keeping these takeaways in mind, you can better navigate the challenges that come with parenting an autistic child, especially during unexpected situations. Now, before I end this episode, I need to tell you about one last takeaway that Ben shared after we had completed the interview. So Ben speaks mostly in scripts from books and movies, and it often helps him process information and make his thoughts known. So as he was listening to Joe and I unpack after the podcast conversation, he started reciting from one of his favorite storybooks, which is We're Going on a Bear Hunt by Michael Rosen. So if you're familiar with the story, you probably can say the lines along with me. But for those who are not, it's about a family that goes on a bear hunt, kind of on a hike, and they meet with different obstacles along the way, like mud and forests and storms and things were unexpected, right? So we couldn't help but see the parallels between the book and our own adventure when he started reciting these words. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Oh no, a snowstorm, a whirling, swirling snowstorm. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We have to go through it. And I think that's a great place to leave this story. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and there's always ways to adapt and find joy, even in the most trying circumstances. Thanks for listening, and take care.
The information in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional.